God is in everything I see, because God is in my mind. God is in everything I see, because God is in my mind. Now look around a little bit and say, God is in everything I see. Just kind of look around for a minute. God is in everything I see, because God is in my mind. God is in everything I see, because God is in my mind. Now close your eyes and do it with things that you're just thinking about. And tell yourself the same thing about the things far away or that you can't see, and say, God is in everything I see, because God is in my mind. God is in everything I see, because God is in my mind. God is in everything I see, because God is in my mind. God is in everything I see, because God is in my mind. Well, thank you all so much for joining me and for studying A Course in Miracles. I'm Miracle Willie, or Forgiveness Willie. We're ready for Lesson 30 in A Course in Miracles. We're reading from the Foundation for Inner Peace version of A Course in Miracles this year. God is in everything I see, because God is in my mind. Here on, this is for Lesson 30, Thursday, January the 30th of 2025. God is in everything I see, because God is in my mind. Listen to that very first sentence here. The idea for today is the springboard for vision. What's a springboard? Well, a diving board's a springboard. It loads up the weight when you jump on it, and then it catapults you into the water. Well, this is going to catapult you far into your experiences of awakening. God is in everything I see, because God is in my mind. Not just jumping off the side of the pool. You're actually getting a little pressure so you can jump further. You bounce down a time or two, or, and get you a nice big bounce, and then let that board spring you forward. Well, this is what this lesson for today is all about. God is in everything I see, because God is in my mind. The idea for today is the springboard for vision. From this idea will the world open up before you, and you will look upon it and see in it what you never have seen before. Nor will what you saw before be even faintly visible to you. Today we're trying to use a new kind of projection. A new kind of projection. Instead of trying to dismiss what we don't like and put it out of our mind, we're going to recognize that everything we see is a result of our mind and what we're thinking. Today we're trying to use a new kind of projection. We're not attempting to get rid of what we do not like by seeing it outside. That's the kind of projection we don't want to do. Instead, we're trying to see in the world what is in our minds and what we want to recognize is there. Thus, we're trying to join with what we see rather than keeping it apart from us. This is the fundamental difference between vision and the way you see. We're trying to join with what we see rather than keeping it apart from us. That is the fundamental difference between vision and the way you see now. We're going to go into the world of vision, though. Today's idea should be applied as often as possible throughout the day. Whenever you have a moment or so, repeat it to yourself, slowly, looking about you, and trying to realize that the idea applies to everything you do see now or could see now if it were within the range of your sight. Real vision is not limited to concepts such as near and far. To help you begin to get used to this idea, try to think of things beyond your present range as well as those you can actually see as you apply today's idea. So when we opened today, when we had a few minutes or a few seconds, we looked around saying, God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. And we're using our eyes open, looking around. And then we close our eyes and look at what's in our inner landscape, or what do we want to think about. You might picture something specifically far away, a person, place, thing, and bring it to mind, and then tell yourself, God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. And the last paragraph for today's lesson, real vision is not only unlimited by space and distance, but it does not depend on the body's eyes at all. The mind is its only source. The mind is vision's only source. To aid in helping you to become more accustomed to this idea as well, devote several practice periods to applying today's idea with your eyes closed, using whatever subjects come to mind and looking within rather than without. Today's idea applies equally to both things you see outside yourself and things you see inside yourself, in your mind. So so you can do kind of what we opened with, looking around, telling yourself, God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. And then you can close your eyes and do that. I'd encourage you to do it once an hour. God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. And if you do it more often than that, so much the better. But at least try for an hour. He didn't tell you how much. He just said as often as you can. Okay, let's go take a look in our text reading. And we're ready for, in chapter 4, the illusions of the ego, section 4, Roman numeral 4, this need not be. If you cannot hear the voice for God, it is because you do not choose to listen. How simple is that? If you cannot hear the voice for God, it is because you do not choose to listen. That you do listen to the voice of your ego is demonstrated by your attitudes, your feelings, and your behavior. Yet this is what you want. This is what you're fighting to keep and what you are vigilant to save. Your mind is filled with schemes to save the face of your ego, and you do not seek the face of Christ. The glass in which the ego seeks to see its face is dark indeed. How can it maintain the trick of its existence except with mirrors? But where you look to find yourself is up to you. Paragraph 2. I have said that you cannot change your mind by changing your behavior. But I've also said, and many times, that you can change your mind. When your mood tells you that you have chosen wrongly, and this is so whenever you are not joyous. Wow, let your mood tell you when you've made erroneous choices. You can always say how you feel. How you feel? You feel happy? Well, then you've been making good choices. You feel sad? Well, then you've been making some wrong choices. Just go back and look at your thoughts. This is a book about the Course in Miracles. It's a book about mind training. We're going to learn to hold on to the thoughts that are true, that are truly joyous, and let go of the ones that are not true, that just debilitate us, make us unhappy. Okay, so use your mood. It says, when your mood tells you that you have chosen wrongly, and this is so whenever you are not joyous, then know this need not be. He's going to give us about 4 need not be's here. Let's look and see what else he says. So again on that, when your mood tells you that you have chosen wrongly, and this is so whenever you are not joyous, then know this need not be. In every case, you have thought wrongly about some brother God created and are perceiving images your ego makes in a darkened glass. Think honestly what you have thought that God would not have thought, and what you have not thought that God would have you think. Search sincerely for what you have done and left undone accordingly, and then change your mind to think with God's. Now that's a fairly simple formula right there. You use your feelings. If you're not happy, well, just know that you've made some thought that God wouldn't think, and accept God's thinking. It's really simple. It's what makes us happy. That's our true identity, to be like our Creator who made us to be in His image. Okay, so search sincerely for what you have done and left undone accordingly, and then change your mind to think with God's. This may seem hard to do, but it is much easier than trying to think against it. Okay, it may be a little bit hard to do, to get in touch with the thoughts, because they're going to be elusive, because they're going to, if you find them, you're going to probably withdraw your support to them, which means that the ego dies. When it doesn't want to die, it wants to stay alive. But it's simply a matter of your own thinking also. It's not anything any other than your allegiance to the idea that you're separate from God, separate from your brother, separate from your own happiness. This may seem hard to do, but it is much easier than trying to think against it. Your mind is one with God's. Denying this and thinking otherwise has held your ego together, but has literally split your mind. Literally split your mind. As a loving brother, I am deeply concerned with your mind and urge you to follow my example as you look at yourself and at your brother and see in both the glorious creations of a glorious Father. Wow, Jesus says that as a loving brother, He's deeply concerned about our minds. And He urges us to follow His example as concerned with our minds, and urges us to follow His example as you look at yourself and your brother and see in both the glorious creations of a glorious Father. See God in everything. God is in everything I see, because God is in my mind. Paragraph 3. When you are sad, know this need not be, for the reason we just talked about. Depression comes from a sense of being deprived of something you want and do not have. Remember that you are deprived of nothing except your own decisions, and then decide otherwise. Paragraph 4. When you are anxious, realize that anxiety comes from the capriciousness of the ego, and know this need not be. What is capriciousness? Given to sudden and unaccountable changes of mood or behavior. Capriciousness. When you are anxious, realize that anxiety comes from the capriciousness of the ego, and know this need not be. You can be as vigilant against the ego's dictates as for them. Paragraph 5. When you feel guilty, remember that the ego has indeed violated the laws of God, but you have not. Leave the, in quotes, sins of the ego to me. That is what atonement is for. But until you change your mind about those whom your ego has hurt, the atonement cannot release you. While you feel guilty, your ego is in command, because only the ego can experience guilt. This need not be. Wow. So we don't need to feel guilty, because only the ego feels guilt. But we don't have to invest our energy into an illusion, the illusion that we're separate from our brother and God. Paragraph 6. Watch your mind for the temptations of the ego and do not be deceived by it. It offers you nothing. When you have given up this voluntary dispiriting, you will see how your mind can focus and rise above fatigue and heal. Yet you are not sufficiently vigilant against the demands of the ego to disengage yourself. This need not be. And we can use a little bit of firmness with our mind and say, okay, I'm going to find the way God thinks because I haven't been listening, evidently, because I'm not happy. Really simple. And then listen. Say, okay, what would God do right now if he was here and it wasn't me? If he was on the scene, what would love do? What would Jesus do? What would God do? Okay? All right, let's go the next. So there's 5 times he uses that concept. This need not be. Paragraph 7. The habit of engaging with God and his creations is easily made if you actively refuse to let your mind slip away. The problem is not one of concentration. It is the belief that no one, including yourself, is worth consistent effort. Side with me consistently against this deception and do not permit this shabby belief to pull you back. The disheartened are useless to themselves and to me, but only the ego can be disheartened. Okay, so let's remember that we're worth the effort. That's what he's trying to say. You're worth the effort of watching, being vigilant, or allowing God to be vigilant and showing you when you're not happy. But be aware, you got to watch when you're not happy. That's your instrument light on your dash beeping or blinking or coming on, saying, hey, you're low on oil, you're low on joy, you've made a decision, you've turned the wrong way, you need to go back and make a new choice. Practice forgiveness. Paragraph 8. Have you really considered how many opportunities you have had to gladden yourself and how many of them you have refused? There is no limit to the power of a son of God, but he can limit the expression of his power as much as he chooses. Your mind and mine can unite in shining your ego away, releasing the strength of God into everything you think and do. Do not settle for anything less than this and refuse to accept anything but this as your goal. Watch your mind carefully for any beliefs that hinder its accomplishment and step away from them. Judge how well you have done this by your own feelings, for this is the one right use of judgment. Use judgment to decide, am I happy or not? It's the one right use of judgment. Judgment, like any other defense, can be used to attack or protect, to hurt or to heal. The ego should be brought to judgment and found wanting there. Without your own allegiance, protection, and love, the ego cannot exist. Again on that. Without your own allegiance, protection, and love, your ego cannot exist. Let it be judged truly, and you must withdraw allegiance, protection, and love from it. 9. You are a mirror of truth, in which God himself shines in perfect light. To the ego's dark glass, you need but say, I will not look there because I know these images are not true. Then let the Holy One shine on you in peace, knowing that this and only this must be. His mind shone on you in your creation and brought your mind into being. His mind still shines on you and must shine through you. Your ego cannot prevent him from shining on you, but it can prevent you from letting him shine through you. So we want God just to shine through us. What would Jesus do? What would love do? What would God do? Let him shine through you. Don't be unhappy. Let your mood tell you when you're letting God's thoughts trickle into your consciousness and animate you and lead you and guide you. Let that be the voice that you hear. Paragraph 10. The first coming of Christ is merely another name for the creation, for Christ is the Son of God. Remember, we were created as one Son, and everything that is created is God's Son. The second coming of Christ means nothing more than the end of the ego's rule and the healing of the mind. Wow, the second coming, the end of the ego's rule, the healing of the mind. I was created like you in the first, and I have called you to join me in the second. Okay, so Christ was created like us in the first coming of Christ. In the second coming, he joined with me, and I have called you to join with me in the second coming. I am in charge of the second coming, and my judgment, which is used only for protection, cannot be wrong because it never attacks. Wow, his judgment can never be wrong because it never attacks. Yours may be so distorted that you believe I was mistaken in choosing you. I assure you, this is a mistake of your ego. Do not mistake it for humility. Your ego is trying to convince you that it is real, and I am not. Because if I am real, I am no more real than you are. That knowledge, and I assure you that that is knowledge, means that Christ has come into your mind and healed it. And paragraph 11, the last paragraph for this section. I do not attack your ego. I do work with your higher mind, the home of the Holy Spirit, whether you are asleep or awake, just as your ego does with your lower mind, which is its home. I am your vigilance in this, because you are too confused to recognize your own hope. I'm not mistaken. Your mind will elect to join with mine, and together we are invincible. Have you made that little willingness to say, okay, Holy Spirit, guide me, show me, lead me. I want to follow you. If you've done that, well, then and just keep that awareness that you've done it and that you want to do that. That's really what he's asking for, is just be willing to follow his guidance. The happy way, the way of salvation. Your mind will elect to join with mine, and together we are invincible. You and your brother will yet come together in my name, and your sanity will be restored. I raised the dead by knowing that life is an eternal attribute of everything that the living God created. Now he's telling you how he even rose the dead. I raised the dead by knowing that life is an eternal attribute of everything that the living God created. So he's saying, I was able to see that death is an illusion. And I looked beyond the illusion and brought reality to bear. Why do you believe it is harder for me to inspire the dispirited or to stabilize the unstable? Any more difficult than raising the dead? He's saying it's not. I do not believe that there is an order of difficulty in miracles. You do. I have called and you will answer. I understand that miracles are natural because they are expressions of love. My calling you is as natural as your answer and as inevitable. Wow, isn't that beautiful? So our lesson today sure goes along. God is in everything I see because God is in my mind. Okay, let's see what's going on around the world today. Martyrdom of Guru Arjan Dev Sahib, which is a Sikh commemoration. Guru Arjan Dev Sahib. NASA's Day of Remembrance, it's the last Thursday of January, is always NASA's Day of Remembrance, which they remember the Challenger disaster and the Columbian disaster. Escape Day, that's a day we want to learn to do every day, kind of like Sabbath or Sabbath, where you take a day of quiet, one day a week, where you just kind of be with family, friends, God, but you set the need for monetary needs set aside, and go inside and in your family and yourself and have a day of escape. That's what the Sabbath was all about, and what it all, we learn there in Hebrew that we want to enter into the rest. It talks about that, and the Sabbath can be every day. Escape day can be every day. Is what I'm trying to get at here. If you need a specific day, well then pick a day. Today's a good day to pick. If it's not a good day, pick another day. But once a week is good. Either every Saturday or Sunday, have a day of escape, and let it be a day where you just kind of tune in with God more, and not be too worried about work, money-wise. You know what I'm saying? Escape Day. Inane answering message day. Hopefully you don't have an inane answering. Your message should say something. God is blessing you might be a nice thing to put on your answer machine. You are blessed by God. Thank you for calling. School Day of Nonviolence and Peace. Okay, well that's today. School Day of Nonviolence and Peace. And Yodel for your neighbor day. You know, going from your normal voice to a falsetto. Maybe I can, I'm not really much of a yodeler. Matter of fact, my yodeling sounds like a new rooster learning to crow. You ever heard one there? It's kind of fun. It's out of Edible Landscape. Maybe we'll try to do a little yodeling while we sing, while we close. Something I'll try to, I mean, like I said, I don't know how to do it, but I'll learn with you. Yodeling day, why not? Try something. It's Fig Day. On Edible Landscaping figs, the Ficus carica, and I brought my fig that I started in the garden last year. This is one that I had in my house. Let me just show it to you. It was a branch that was coming off of my fig tree that I leave out in the garden, and I've shown it to you a few years ago if you all have been following me for several years. Anyway, it's out in the garden now, but I took a branch and I laid a big rock on it, put some dirt around it. That branch, laid it down in the dirt, put a rock to hold it down, and it was this branch right here, and it rooted. So before the first frost, I cut it off from the mother plant, let the mother plant stay outside, brought this one inside, and so it's a Chicago hardy fig. And it's doing really nice in the south window there in the house. I was going to show you, I'm actually getting this little start here. I put it under dirt here too. So it's going to make roots. So in spring, I'll be able to pull this one as a plant by itself, and this one here plant by itself. You know, as long as I keep it watered. That's my problem. I sometimes get so busy, but I'm getting a little better at remembering because it's important to me and I enjoy it. So anyway, there's my hardy Chicago fig. We're taking a little more time than I meant to spend. So it says the hardy Chicago brown fig, rich, sweet, good for potted culture. Although it is our most dependable outdoor fig, hardy Chicago ripens from August till fall frost and will have some fruit in July. Has produced as many as 100 pints of figs in one season. Leaves are 5-lobed type. The plant has a bush form in the east. Space 8 to 10 foot circles in zone 7, zone 6 through 8. Now that I know it has 5 lobes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it looks like it has 5. Okay, let's close with our song. Our word for peace is from Benin of West Africa, and it's the Fawn people, and their word is Fida. So Fida be with you. See if I can do one little yodel. And remember, if you don't have any time on these, but all day today, say, God is in everything I see, because God is in my mind. God is in everything I see, because God is in my mind. God is in everything I see, because God is in my mind. Close your eyes and do it for me. God is in everything I see. See something in your mind and tell yourself, God is in everything I see. God is in everything I see. Then look around and do the same. God is in everything I see, because God is in my mind. God is in everything I see, because God is in my mind. Fida.